Want to learn the secret behind making a perfect scone? Well, grab a cuppa, pull up a chair, and I'll tell you. I'm Tom Carradine, pianist, singer, and host of Carradine's Cockney Sing-Along, usually seen pushing my piano around London and entertaining crowds with a good old-fashioned knees up. Now, alongside my passion for vintage music, there's another thing I'm passionate about, and that is afternoon tea. I just love the ceremony of this traditional English custom, which includes finger sandwiches, dainty cakes, and the lightest and fluffiest of scones. Since being captured in Kai Hammond's Weird Side video baking scones, people ask me for the lowdown on how I make mine. Well, now's the time for me to spill the beans. I've always enjoyed cooking since I was a kid, and I was the only boy in my year to do food technology GCSE. But when baking as a kid using my nana's trusty recipe book, my scones never seemed to rise. Now, the revelation came about 5 years ago when I discovered a recipe by the Great British Bake Off judge Paul Hollywood. Now, have you got that cuppa? Let me tell you the secret behind Paul's fluffy and well-risen scones. The secret to this recipe is the use of strong white bread flour. This gives the finished scones strength and structure. So, heat your oven to 220 degrees C and prepare 2 baking trays with baking parchment. First, place 450 grams of strong white bread flour into a large mixing bowl and add 80 grams of chilled unsalted butter. Now rub the flour and butter together to create a mixture like breadcrumbs. Now this is going to take you a couple of minutes. Next, add 80 grams of caster sugar and 5 teaspoons of baking powder and give this a little mix. Then lightly beat 2 eggs and add them to the dry ingredients. Next, measure out 250 millilitres of full fat milk and add half of that to the mixture. Give this a mix by turning gently to combine the ingredients. Then add the remaining milk a little at a time to form a very soft, wet, sticky dough. You may not need to use all the milk. Then measure out 50 grams more of strong white bread flour and sprinkle most of this on your work surface. Tip the sticky dough onto the flour and sprinkle the rest of the flour on top. Now the secret to well-risen scones is not overworking the dough at this stage and combining the extra flour by a process called chaffing, where you fold and turn the dough, incorporating flour and trapping air. So do this a few times until you've got a smooth dough. Then, using a pastry cutter dipped in flour, stamp out the scones and place them on the prepared baking trays. This mixture should make you about 15 small scones. With the leftover dough, bring it back together into a ball, flatten it out again and make it into more scones. Now these won't rise as well, but it would be a shame to waste the leftovers. Next, prepare a beaten egg with a pinch of salt and brush this onto the tops of the scones. Then bake the scones for about 10 minutes in the oven, or until they are well risen and golden brown. Probably just enough time for a cuppa.
Oh, the factories may be roaring, with the zooming like a wee, but there isn't any roar when the clock strikes 4 and everything stops for tea. Who a lawyer in a courtroom, in the middle of an alimony plea, has to stop and help him pour when the clock strikes 4, everything stops for tea. It's a very good English custom, though the weather be cold or hot. When you need a little pickup, you'll find a little teacup will always hit the spot. Oh, the soldiers may be fighting in the trenches or a battleship at sea, but there isn't any war when the clock strikes 4 and everything stops for tea.
When they're well risen and golden brown, remove the scones from the oven, and if they're cooked properly, they should sound hollow when you tap them on the base. Finally, pop them on a cooling rack, and once they've cooled down a little, it's time to enjoy them, preferably as part of afternoon tea. Now, traditionally in the UK, scones are eaten topped with jam and clotted cream. The order in which you put on the jam and cream can be a divisive topic. In Cornwall, it's traditional to apply jam first and then add cream on top. Next door in Devon, they opt for cream then jam. And according to a former chef to the Queen, she prefers it jam first. But Who am I to suggest which is best? It all goes down the same way.
But there isn't any war when the clock strikes 4 and everything stops for tea. Cheers!